What's the greatest unsolved mystery of World War II? Some would say, where is Amelia Earhart? Or who shot Lincoln's assassin? John Wilkes Booth, but none of those mysteries compares to what we're talking about today because it involves a secret team of code breakers working in complete silence, desperately trying to crack one of the most complex ciphers ever created. The fate of the world quite literally hung in the balance. So let's dive into today's big question. Did you know there is a 99% chance that right now somebody somewhere is using an encryption protocol developed during World War II? Because when you use end-to-end encrypted messaging apps or banking sites with a lock-in address bar, you can rest easy knowing that the Nazis are going to intercept your private messages, thanks to the legacy of these men. And before we jump in, we want to thank our supporters for making videos like this possible. Now let's go back to the beginning. By the late 1930s, the Nazi war machine was already humming along. They had taken Austria, they were marching through Czechoslovakia, and all eyes were on Poland. But everybody knew war was inevitable. All the countries involved were just trying to figure out how they'd get the upper hand. For Germany, they had something very up their sleeve, a nearly unbreakable cipher machine called Enigma. It looked like a typewriter and worked like 1-2, except every letter you typed would be replaced with another according to a near infinite amount of possible combinations. The implications were staggering. Spies could communicate safely, military tactics could be shared securely, and important information could be sent freely, without the risk of interception. There was just one small problem though. The British weren't having it. Now it's time to meet our hero, Alan Turing, who some believe was the father of modern computing and artificial intelligence. He was born in London in 1912, but grew up in a village in the countryside. As a boy, he was fascinated by machines, building his own intricate contraptions using whatever he had lying around. But once he learned there was a war happening, he set those toys aside and started thinking seriously about how to help his country. In 1938, he was recruited by the British government and asked if he could help decipher the new German Enigma code. At first he thought it was impossible, so he said no. But when he realized the alternative was letting the Nazis win, he changed his mind. When Turing got the Enigma machine, he thought he could solve it on his own, but quickly found he needed more hands on deck. Soon he assembled a group of 8 people in a mansion outside of London. Their goal was singular: decipher Enigma. But they faced an uphill battle. How do you break a code that changes every second? Well, Turing made a brilliant move. He wrote down every possible combination and then tried to find patterns by plugging in random letters until he found one that matched. It was slow and laborious, but eventually he had a breakthrough. He realized that Enigma didn't change every second, but instead changed every 26 letters of the alphabet. With that knowledge, Turing and his team were able to start predicting the German codes, but they still needed a way to calculate thousands of possibilities in real time. And that meant inventing a whole new kind of machine. To understand what comes next, we need to talk about the technology of the era. Early computers ran on vacuum tubes, which were bulky, expensive, and prone to failure. But they were a start. Using the vacuum tubes, Turing designed a machine called the bomb. It used rotors like the Enigma machine, but instead of encrypting messages, it decrypted them. This gave the team an incredible advantage. They could now test thousands of possibilities at lightning speed, turning what was once an impossible task into a very possible one. But there was one major obstacle. It was expensive and time-consuming to build. It took months and thousands of pounds to make a single bomb machine, not to mention the electricity bill. They needed a lot of electricity. Undeterred, Turing and his team built over 200 bomb machines, along with an army of female mathematicians known as the Code Girls to operate them. Each night, the team would receive encrypted German messages from the previous day. They'd feed them into the machines and wait. Then they'd analyze the results, look for patterns, and adjust the machines accordingly. Slowly but surely, they started to break the Enigma code. But it wasn't easy. The Germans would make adjustments to the code every few weeks, forcing the team to start over. Plus, it was top secret. Nobody else could know what they were doing, even family and friends. But the stakes were just too high. If the Germans knew what the British were up to, they could adjust the code even further, potentially changing the outcome of the entire war. But Turing and his team persevered. They worked tirelessly for years, sleeping in their offices, eating at their desks, and never giving up. Finally, in 1945, victory. Historians say that the work done by Turing and his team of code breakers may have shortened the war by 2 years, saving millions of lives. But their story doesn't end there. The techniques and technologies they developed laid the foundation for everything we use today. Computers, the internet, smartphones, tablets, laptops. Everything we take for granted wouldn't exist without them. After the war, Turing returned to academia, continuing his research into artificial intelligence. But his time in the service was a closely guarded secret. In fact, it wasn't until the 1970s that the story of the code breakers was declassified and the public could finally learn about them. But by then, Turing was gone. In 1954, he died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound at the age of 62. He'd been charged with gross indecency for engaging in a relationship with a man, something that was illegal in Britain at the time. Unable to cope with the scandal, he took his own life. It was a tragic end for a brilliant mind. Now here's the engagement hook we promised. Can you imagine a world without computers or the internet? Without Turing, that might have been our reality. Now we're going to wrap things up with our call to action. If you enjoyed this episode, hit subscribe for more untold stories that shaped our world. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.